Welcome back. Let us continue with our agriculture lessons, book 4, and we are on farm power. Of course, on this topic, we're mainly going to discuss on 3 items. We're going to identify the main sources of farm power, and also we're going to look onto details on the advantages and disadvantages of each source of farm power. And lastly, we're also going to look onto details on some of the ways which will help to improve each source of farm power we're going to list. Without wasting time, first of all, let us identify some of the sources of farm power. So the following are the common sources of power in the farm, and these will include human power, animal power, wind power, water, mechanical, biogas, as well as solar. So we can we can use agricultural activities or farm activities by using these sources of farm power. As I've already mentioned, we have human, we can use animals, we can use wind, we can also get some power from water to use in farm operations, mechanical, biogas, as well as solar. So as I've already mentioned, we're going to look onto details, more especially on the advantages and disadvantages of each source of farm power, and in what ways we can improve each source of farm power so that the work in the farm should be perfect. Let us start with the first source of farm power, which is human power. This is a common source of power used by small-scale farmers. It is mainly used by small-scale farmers, and it refers to the use of human beings to do work in their farms. So human power can be used to do some farm operations, more especially minor farm operations, of which you can use some small tools. This source of farm power, it is very cheap. So that is one of the advantage of human power. It is cheap and easily available. Apart from that, it does not require farmers' presence during operations. We are talking of using human beings. So they have brains. So there will be no need for the presence of farmer during operations. Apart from that, it will create more job opportunities. So we're saying that we're using human beings. It means it will be an added advantage in the sense that more people will have some work to do, whereby at the end of the day they may have some finances out of that. Apart from that, if there is high motivation, it will increase productivity. Human power, most of the times, it is very effective, more especially if there is high motivation. So if they are effective when there is high motivation, therefore it will increase productivity. On the other hand, human power has got some limitations or some disadvantages, and one of the disadvantage of human power is that it depends on workers' health. Hence, it might be unreliable. So it will depend on the workers' health. Definitely, if they are not feeling okay, if they are sick, we may not expect those people to work in the field. So it will depend on workers' health. Therefore, it might be unreliable. Apart from that, it is slow, hence takes a lot of time to complete the task. Since we're saying that these farm operations, they are done by human beings, and most of the times they use these small farm tools. So if that is the case, it will take time in order for them to complete the task. It will take a lot of time in order for them to complete the task given. Therefore, we're saying that it is slow. This source of farm power, it is very, very slow. Apart from that, low work input and relies on a level of skills of the workers. So I was saying that you may have low work input, and also it will rely on the levels of skills of workers. If the workers you have employed in the farm they are of low skill, we do not expect those activities to be done perfect. And lastly, if there is less motivation, it will reduce productivity. There will be a decrease in terms of production in the farm if there is less motivation. So it is also another disadvantage of human power. How best can we improve this source of farm power, which is human power? Output of human power can be improved through proper training. Most of the times, in order for the farmers to have high productivity in their fields, they'll need to have those workers which have they have some skills. So it is not always that you may have skilled labor in the community. So if there is no skilled labor, it means you are supposed to train those workers. So proper training is one of the way of improving human power. Apart from that, use of efficient machinery. If they use those simple tools or small tools, most of the times, as I've already mentioned, we expect that in terms of perfection, it will not be there. Apart from that, the work may slow down. So to prevent that, at least you may involve human power, but make sure that you also they are using efficient machinery so that the work can be done perfect. And also another way of improving human power is just by proper motivation or incentives. If you provide the workers with some incentives or motivation, they'll be working very hard in the field. The end result will be high productivity. And also just by assigning or assignment of duties according to expertise. Not all workers which you may employ, they may know all the activities which are required in the farm. Some they may be better when it comes to land preparation. Some they may do well when it comes to fertilizer application or weeding or sometimes harvesting. So it is important that you assign them the duties according to expertise. Those who do well during land preparation, you assign them as that work. But those who do well when it comes to weeding, it means you assign them according to where they can work better. Man's health is also one way of improving human power. You as a farmer, you make sure that all the workers you have employed are in good health. If at all someone is not feeling okay, you make sure that you provide all the necessities so that that person feels okay before he goes to work in the field. In that case, it can make it can lead to high productivity in the farm. Another source of farm power is animal power. This is the use of animals to carry out activities in the farm. And the animals which are used uh, uh, to carry out activities in the farm are known as draughty animals. And these may include oxen, donkeys, as well as camels. They may also be used to carry out some of the activities in the farm. So most sometimes animal power can be used for the following operations, like cultivation using ox plows and cultivators, transportation by pulling carts or carrying loads directly on their backs, as well as we can also use them during planting or weeding, as well as even transporting, more especially uh, uh, the produce from the farm to the market or even to farmers' home. This source of farm power, we most of the times the best output, it will be influenced by body weight of the animal. In order for the animals to build up their bodies, definitely you require to them to give enough amount of feeds, more especially the concentrates, protein concentrates as well as energy concentrates. They will help to build up their bodies. And also, we may also look in terms of harnessing of the animal, well equipped. Most of the times, if they are properly equipped, animals will be more efficient than those that are improperly harnessed. So, before you get those animals to do some of the operations in the field, make sure that they are well equipped. All the equipments which will be needed in order for them to carry out the activities should be available. So we're saying properly equipped animals will be more efficient than those that are improperly harnessed. And also training of the animal is also one way of improving output from animal power. Most of the times well-trained animals give out more power and are very effective than poorly trained animals. So before you put those animals to work in the field, make sure that they are well trained. Otherwise, if they are not well trained, you may end up having less uh, unexpected output from those animals. The animal power has got its own advantages as well as disadvantages. Let's start with the advantages of animal power. It is relatively cheap to buy and maintain the draught animals. Apart from that, it results into higher work output. If we can compare with the uh, human power, at least the results in animal power uh, are better off than human power. Apart from that, it does not require use of highly skilled personnel. And also it can be used where tractors cannot be used. So the animal power can be used where tractors cannot be used. Most of the times the tractors, they are selective in the places where they can work, but the animals, you can use them even in the terrain where tractors cannot be used. It can also be used on small piece of land. Comparing with the tractors, most of the times those tractors are required to be used on large scale farmers, on large scale farmers. But with animal power, can be used on large scale farmers as well as even on the small piece of land. It can also be used on very steep slope if we can compare with the tractors. Those tractors, they cannot be, they can not maneuver well on very steep slopes, but with animals, it is possible to use them even on very steep slopes. Though we have so many advantages of animal power, but there are some limitations we need to put into consideration. These animals are likely to fall sick and may take long to recover, therefore leading to drudgery when it comes to doing farm operations. And also animals get tired quickly. If we can compare with the machines, these animals they are also living organisms, so we're saying that they get tired quickly. So in terms of uh, quickness, when it comes to doing farm operations, tractors are much more better than animals. And also animals require adequate feeding. We're talking of animals. In order for them to work efficiently, you need to feed them. In order for them to build up their bodies, you need to feed them. So animals require adequate feeding, making the whole operation to be expensive. Then, in order for you to feed them, you need more land. So more land is required for pasture production as well. And lastly, some animals may be aggressive, resulting into injuries. So farmers may end up being injured, more especially if you are using those animals which are aggressive. Another source of farm power is wind power. When wind moves, the kinetic energy is produced, which makes the blades and the windmill to rotate. So rotation of a windmill will produce the wind power, which can be used in different operations on the farm. So wind power is used for the following operations. We can use wind power when it comes to pumping water from boreholes, generating electricity, as well as winnowing crops such as beans, millet, rice, soon after threshing. How best can we improve wind power? So output from wind power can be improved just by increasing the size of rotors used on the wind turbines, and also just by ensuring that wind turbines are operational and available. If they are not operational, definitely less energy may be exerted. Apart from that, they should be available. If they are not available, it means the whole operation may not work at all. And in terms of advantages of wind power, it is inexhaustible. It is very, very easy. Once the energy is exerted from wind, it will be very, very easy to use in different farm operations. And also, equipments used in harnessing wind have low maintenance, making it to be somehow not that costly. Of course, it is costly, but comparing with other sources of uh, farm power, this one is much more, in terms of cost, is reasonable than the other. And also, it is an environmental friendly source of power. It does not destroy the environment at all. In terms of disadvantages, wind power might be unreliable. There are some of the areas in the country we may not have enough wind so that it can produce enough energy as required so that some farm operations should be done. But of course, in the other areas, most of the times it is windy. So in those areas, it might be reliable. And also sometimes some of the months it is always cool. You may find out that it is not windy at all. So it means you may not exert energy from the wind during those months. So we're saying that wind power is unreliable. And also its direction cannot be controlled. We're talking of wind, nature. If it is blowing from west to north, you may not be able to control. You may not be able to control. So I'm saying that its direction cannot be controlled. Cannot be controlled. So that can be the problem as well. More especially, it will depend on the way you have planted your materials when it comes to harnessing the wind. And also high initial cost, especially when it comes to setting up the windmill. So we expect high initial cost. So that's the limitation part of wind power. And lastly, it is limited to areas where wind is prevalent. Another commonly and also interesting source of power is the water power. Most of the times, moving water has also kinetic energy, and this kinetic energy can be used to drive water mills, which are used in grinding some cereals. And also the energy can also be used to transport some logs in navigable rivers, and also uh, operate a hydro pump to draw water for uh, domestic use. And overall, we should know that more especially electricity, this electricity, it is generated also from the water itself. And we can not only talk of uh, the farm operations uh, which are done right in the field, but we may also talk of when it comes to maybe processing those produce from the farm. We will also need the same power. We also need the same power. So it can be used to generate electricity. Some of the ways of improving water power can be as follows: just by construction of dams which can hold large volume of water. In order for this water now to generate that kinetic energy we have mentioned, we need at least large volume of water. Large volume of water. So in order for us to have or harness large volume of water, we need to construct the dam. So it's one way of improving water power. And also use of modern efficient turbines. Sometimes, for example, here in Malawi, we running out of electricity, the blackouts. This might be just because maybe we are not using modern efficient turbines in the waterfalls where we are generating electricity. So we can improve this water power just by using modern efficient turbines. Apart from that, afforestation and reforestation may really help. How? We know that these trees, they may prevent uh, soil erosion. Soil erosion. Most of the times, if there is too much siltation in the river, we may have less volume of water from the water sources. So if we plant the trees, it means those volumes of soils may not be deposited into the water sources where we get the water to generate power. Here are some of the advantages and disadvantages of water power. In terms of advantages, it is cheap. Why? More especially the water. We're talking of a natural resource. We do not buy water. That's why we're saying it is cheap. On the other hand, it might be expensive, more especially when it comes to buying those turbines. But on the advantage part, we're saying that it is cheap since we're using a natural resource which is already available. We're not buying it. Apart from that, it has low initial investment, and also it is a renewable source of power. Once used, can be replenished. So we're saying that it is a renewable source of power. The disadvantage might be most of water sources, more especially rivers, are seasonal and may have low volumes, more especially during dry season. Low or no water at all during dry season, therefore lowering the power of generation potential. And also rivers flowing in relative flat areas have low power generation. That's why our ESCOM here in Malawi, they generate electricity more especially on the waterfalls. So on flat areas, it will be difficult to have required energy power from the water, but rather we need on steep or on waterfalls is whereby we can generate a high power. So we're saying that rivers which flow in relatively flat areas have low power generation.
Yanu kufunafuna mapunziro muzakhala wotumidwa moyo wanu wonse. Ngati simuphunzira anthu azingokutumani ajala kalime ajala kuchwe manyazi ajala katende yanti ndipo anthu ophunzira wandu wotuma so kwambiri. Ndiye ngati simuphunzira skulu akuyikirani apa mukhala otumidwa.